Print and cut is a really cool feature of the Cricut Explore and Maker cutting machines, but so many of you tell me that you're intimidated by it. Sometimes this is because you haven't tried it yet, let's be honest. But sometimes you tried it and it seems too complicated, or it just didn't work the way you expected, right? So I'd like to share my best tricks and tips for excellent print and cut projects, because the ability to make fun projects like these gingerbread houses is totally worth it because they are so cute. First, the printer. It's important you know that you need a printer to do print then cut on your Cricut, because your Cricut does not print on its own. This may seem obvious to you already, but perhaps not so to others, so I wanted to mention it. Now, Cricut recommends we use an inkjet printer, but I've also found that a laser printer is okay so long as the materials that you're putting in it are appropriate. So don't put printable vinyl in a laser printer unless the package says you can, as the high heat of a laser printer will hurt the vinyl. Paper is fine though. I prefer to use an inkjet most of the time. I am using my HP Envy 7155, but other HPs are pretty good, so are Epson EcoTanks. And those are both great brands to use with Cricut Print and Cut. Next, printing issues. Sometimes the printer has issues feeding the paper you want to cut on your Cricut. If this happens, use the rear feed if you have one. If you don't have one, try putting in just one sheet of paper into your printer at a time, as most feed issues that affect print and cut are the result of the printer's inability to pick up just one sheet of paper. I also recommend you avoid Cricut sticker paper. Sorry, Cricut. It's just too thick for most people's printers. Okay, I like to use Avery when I want to use sticker paper. And speaking of paper type, you will get the best results when it comes to cutting your design if you use matte paper, not glossy paper. The little sensor on your Cricut can have problems reading the registration lines. It's like right down here, because there can be glare from the glossy paper. So if you're having problems, use matte, non-shiny paper. Or if you absolutely must use that glossy paper, print out 2 sheets of your designs, one on glossy, one on matte, and then cut out the middle of the matte paper and place it over your glossy paper like a frame, then tape it down and cut. Okay? My next tip is to calibrate your Cricut. This is important for getting good cuts that align with your design. You can learn how to calibrate over at jennifermaker.com/calibration. Just follow the steps in the video and it shows you exactly what to do. I also recommend you check your printer. If you're having any issues with printing and you're seeing streaks, weird colors, inconsistency, anything like that, clean your print heads. You can learn how to clean print heads by checking your printer's manual or your support site for your printer. Trust me, it can make a huge difference. Now let's talk about printer settings, because this is a big one. In fact, we're going to go into Cricut Design Space right now. So give me just a second. I have it up right now. One moment, please. Okay. I'll make sure I got it up here. Yes, there we go. See it? So when you go into Cricut Design Space, you will have the option to use your system dialog. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space. I have my project up here, my print and cut project. I've selected my printer. This is kind of basically the default that you see. Right here is the ability to use the system dialog. It is unchecked by default. I want you to check it. Okay, this is important. It makes a big difference. So be sure to toggle that option on, and then when you go ahead and click print right here, you'll get this right here. And sometimes you'd be like, okay, now what? Because it just sits here like this. So let's move this out of the way because it's right there. It's behind it. Okay. Once you click on it, it comes to the front. So you don't have to you could move it, but it shows up behind. And I think that can confuse people who are new, right? All right. So what you want, make sure you have your printer connected. Mine seems to have gone to sleep. Let's turn it back on. We should see this little, air right here. We should see it go away. We're not seeing it right now, but it looks like it's on. Okay, so that's always an important thing. Is your printer turned on? Is it connected to your computer? So many times it's turned off or gone to sleep or something. All right, so the next thing that we need to look for is our quality. Usually, if you haven't been doing print then cut or fancy printing before, usually it's on normal right here. So you want it to actually slide it over to best. That really, really, really makes a difference. In fact, my biggest tip for Cricut Print Then Cut is to slide your quality over to best. You can set a preset, as you can see I have here. If you're on a Mac, it's up here. If you're on Windows, it'll be somewhere around here. Your dialog box is probably going to look a lot different than mine, so don't be surprised by that. It changes based on your printer and your system. But it always has a place for you to choose your printer, a place for you to choose what you're printing, your quality, and your paper type. So the paper type will depend completely on your project. For the project I'm doing today, auto select is fine, or I could do specialty paper mats. Those are my two go-tos for Cricut Print Then Cut, right? If you were doing maybe printable vinyl, you might want to do the glossy one. Glossy will distribute the ink a little differently, so you might want to experiment with that, but these are the best settings, and then you print, okay? So just remember, it's likely to be behind your Cricut Design Space window. And everyone's dialog box will look different, right? So just the important things are to remember to change it to best or high or maximum or whatever it says. This will make a huge difference in how good your final print looks. So don't forget to do this. Make yourself a little reminder on your machine if you have to. And if you do this and you still think your print doesn't look right, clean those print heads on your printer. All right, so my next tip is lighting. Be sure to pay attention to the lighting in your room. If you have a desk lamp shining on your Cricut, it can cause issues with the sensor's ability to pick up the registration lines properly. Move that light to improve the lighting in your room. Direct sunlight coming in through a window can also have the same effect. You may want to experiment with lowering or raising the overall light in your room too. Okay, so you want it to have an even illumination on your page. If you continue to have issues getting your Cricut to cut your design properly, I have even more tips. So first, check your machine mat. Make sure that there's no smudges or marks on it that might confuse your sensor, like a black mark or like a line left over from doing a project. Then check your sensor light and make sure it's clean. And I will show you what I mean. You can use a switch over to this view. There we go. So here is at my Cricut. The sensor is usually right in between these two. So you can use a small, clean, dry brush like this, and you can like sweep under there to get to your, I can't quite see it, but it's under there. And because it's possible there was something stuck on it, maybe some glitter or paper or vinyl, adhesive even, something could be interfering with the sensor. So make sure the sensor is clean. Now you also want to make sure that sensor light is actually coming on when you try to cut a printed design. It will light up. It's got a little like LED on it. If it does not light up, be sure to contact Cricut Member Care for help because there could be an issue with your machine. And if your cut is off, no matter what you do, check that you're printing your page properly and are not accidentally shrinking it. Some computers and printers will default to fit to page or shrink to fit in the system dialog box. You want to be sure that it is not selected, that option is not selected, and that you're printing at 100%. Something else to pay attention to are our registration marks. Let me show you what they look like right here. Here we go. So this is the time I'm making this video, what our registration marks should look like. Turn it like this, in fact, so you can see, right? So we've got a black box. It's important to make sure that these registration marks are black, not gray, not filled with lines, not some other color, okay? They need to be solid black and present at all 4 points of your design, okay? You need to have all registration marks around the whole thing. If you continue to have issues with print then cut, actually there's one more thing I want to show you. So let me show you an example of a misfeed. So if you ever get a print that looks like this, you've ever seen this before? This is a misfeed. You see how it doesn't have, it's like at the top, it's kind of cut off here. You've got it around the others, but not at the top. If you ever see this, it's not going to work because your Cricut can't pick up all of the lines it's missing. This happens usually when you have more than one sheet of paper in your paper tray and it tries to pick up more than one by accident. This happens with all printers. So honestly, it amazes me they can even pick up a single sheet of paper. It's like magic, right? But sometimes that happens. And so you get those, it like tries to bring in two and one of them is kind of offset to the other. So this happens. So if you put just one sheet of paper in your printer, it can't do that. That's why I recommend just one sheet. And if you continue to have issues with print then cut, I want to invite you to come over to my Cricut Craft group and ask about your specific situation. Okay, so the group is over at jennifermaker.com/CricutCrafters. Share a photo of what you're trying to do, your material choices, what Cricut you're using, anything else so that our community can help point you to a possible solution. We've collectively printed more than, I'd say, 1 million projects, maybe more, and we can totally help you. And let me answer, I'm sure you got some questions about Cricut Print Then Cut, so give me just a second to bring out my questions, and I would be happy to help you out with this. Okay, great question here. So MT says, when do we use bleed on or off? So it depends on the project. So the thing about bleed is that it's actually just extending the outer edge just a bit so that when you go to cut it, if there's just a little bit of, you have just a little, if your cut is just a little off, you won't notice it. That's basically what bleed is. It's kind of a cheat, but it works. Typically, I always have bleed on. In fact, you will see that we turn bleed on for this project. And when you first print it, let's get out a good one, not a bad one. Here we go. So this is a properly printed one of our project right here. You'll notice that bleed is on for this. So look at one and look how at all of it, but you can particularly see it with one. It looks a little bit like you can barely read that, right? Whereas it should, when it's done, it should look like this. This is correct because it's just added a little bleed so that we don't see those white edges, right? We don't want to see white edges. So it added this and it's going to cut out like this. So I typically always leave bleed on and it always works for me. And it's on by default too, so that works. I just default to bleed. And if when I'm done, it isn't quite right, I will redo it. Joyce says, what kind of printer is best for print and cut? Any printer that you can afford and works for you is pretty much okay, so long as you are happy with the quality. Inkjet is preferred so that you can do all of the print and cut projects, but if you already have like a color laser printer and you only intend to put paper or cardstock in there, that is also fine. If you are in the market for a new printer to specifically do print and cut, I like HP printers and I like Epson EcoTanks printers. Just my recommendation is that if you're specifically looking for print and cut, look for one that can do photo quality prints. The resolution is higher and you will be happier with them in general. And you can get them for really good prices. So photo quality is kind of standard these days. Maybe not so on older printers, but yeah, you can, those are my options, my recommendations, HP and Epson. Jennifer says, can you do print then cut with the brown gingerbread paper? You totally can. This is the brown. If you do this, and if you do this with so actually this is a great question. So there's two things to remember here. One is that if you put ink on this, ink is transparent. Inkjet ink is transparent, okay? So all of your reds will look brownish red. All of your blues will look muddy. All of your yellows will look muddy. So it won't be as vibrant as this is, okay? It just won't because it's transparent. The other thing, so you can certainly do it. The other thing to keep in mind is that really only the Maker 3 and the Explorer 3 cutting machines are going to be good at cutting something this color. For the most part, you want to use white paper when you're doing print then cut on the earlier Explorers and the original Maker. When the Maker 3 and the Explorer 3 came out, they upgraded the sensor so that it could do colored paper. So if you have one of those, go for it and try it with this. See if you like it. If you don't, the sensor isn't, the high resolution isn't high enough to distinguish the lines, right, on this. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Let's see here. Fran says, do you have a particular printer that works well with cardstock? So I got this HP Envy in 2017. It is almost 2023. We're almost at the end. So this printer I have not upgraded all this time. So what is that? Like almost 6 years now. It's worked great. It is a workhorse. It didn't cost me that much. I don't know if they still sell this particular model. I still link it in all of my blog posts. But I think it's not like actively, so you have to get like a, one that's been sitting on a shelf for a while. It's obviously not going to affect it. This thing has been, I've like taken it back and forth from my studio to my house. Everyone uses it. It's awesome. So I highly recommend the HP Envy. It's got great prints and it looks awesome. But a lot of people use Epson EcoTanks and they're very happy with them too. So those are my two recommendations really. Okay, let's see. I think, oh, and one more question, and then I'll go on to other questions about this. Christy says, what kind of paper do you use for print and cut? 80 pound? You can actually use all the paper that will fit through your printer. So for example, this is on copy paper. So you can totally use copy paper if that's what you want for your particular project. I don't recommend it for this project because this is a 3-dimensional project. I recommend 65-pound cardstock. So you can use anything from 20-pound copy paper all the way up to, let's say, 80-pound paper, so long as it will print in your printer. Some printers will start to get touchy when the thicker it gets, the thicker your paper. So if you have a rear feed, which this does not, by the way, and also I've been using all this time, been fine, but if it has a rear feed, that usually helps. But yeah, so I mostly only use 20-pound copy paper, 65-pound and 80-pound cardstock in my printer and for my projects. And of course, I also use sticker paper, which is somewhere in the middle there. And I use printable vinyl. Also, the thickness is somewhere in the middle there. So that's the range of what I think works. All right, those are my print then cut tips and tricks. I hope that this helps you with your Cricut print then cut project.